It's time to dig deep into the movie Glass. The movie Split dealt a lot with belief and the power of belief. The movie Unbreakable dealt a lot with purpose and finding one's purpose in life. This movie has a lot to do with the fact that we could all dig down deep and become superheroes. But it's amazing how destructive that one little seed of doubt can be. Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin, and this is my theological analysis for Glass. This movie was absolutely fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed it beginning to end. And if you want to check out my review of that movie, I do my spoiler talk up right now, and you can check that out. Also, I did a theological analysis for Unbreakable and Split, so you could definitely check out my theological analyses for both those movies. What's really interesting is when you dive into Split, Split has a lot to do with the power of belief. With each new identity that exists inside of Kevin's body, when each identity takes the light, it fully believes and is fully persuaded of its identity. Because of that full belief, without doubt, it makes changes to the body. So when the diabetic personality takes over, the body becomes diabetic. When the beast takes over, it has skin that cannot be broken and it can bend metal bars. But what about the power of the seed of doubt?
Belief in oneself is contagious. We are part of something larger.
What if I suggested that you are mistaken?
One of the most interesting plot points in Glass for me is after the Horde is captured, after David Dunn is captured, and they're all brought before Dr. Ellie Staple in that pink room like you see in the trailer and like what happens in the movie. But what's so interesting about the movie is how she plants little seeds of doubt, and how quickly and how fast those seeds of doubt grow. So when you dive into this movie, you have David Dunn, who's walking around the warehouse district area because he believes that's probably where the kidnapped cheerleaders are, and he happens to go past Hedwig dancing around, bumps into him, and gets a vision. And he knows, okay, somewhere with this old brick, I could see it clearly in my head. His son gets on the computer, finds a place that made bricks. He goes there, he finds the cheerleaders, and he combats the beast, a super strong foe who could not break him. And David Dunn, even when the beast is all wrapped around him and squeezing so tight, David Dunn just looks up at the window and walks towards the window, dragging the beast in tow, jumps out the window, beast on back, and boom, they both land in the ground, the pavement, the grass, whatever, and they get up alive and well just fine. It's an incredibly intense scene. But once they get captured and they're sitting in that little pink room and Dr. Ellie Staples planting her little seeds of doubt, she was very clever in how she did it too. Because she pointed at David Dunn and says, do you really think you're a superhero? Can you think of a horrible event in your life where you almost died? And because of that horrible event, you wanted to see yourself as superhuman? And he flashes back to drowning in that pool as a kid. And then she goes, yeah, and then you were in that train accident and you're the sole survivor. So you fit the pattern of somebody that had this weird trigger in their mind and they would suddenly believe that's what they are. Okay, yeah, but you saw some guy acting like a kid, which you know fit the profile from the news. You saw some stain of red brick on their pants, and from there you could just assume it was a brick factory, and you could picture in your mind what that would look like. And suddenly he looks at her and he says the right thing. He says, you're describing a chain of events, a chain of thought that never occurred. But it's amazing. That chain of thought never occurred, but that's what doubt does. It comes in as this teeny tiny, small idea. And it just seems insignificant and it seems stupid. And then all of a sudden, it gets a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. Now keep in mind, David Dunn has just had an amazing victory. I mean, yeah, he got captured, but the beast was trying to squash him and he didn't break, and he jumped out of a window with the beast on his back and he's unbroken. And yet, that little seed of doubt begins to play with his mind. And suddenly his mind gets on this confirmation bias. As the seed of doubt grows more and more, he's trying to find ways to prove that he's not a superhero. So it's interesting how that seed of doubt began to grow. And as it began to grow, then he stopped acting in his abilities. He stopped acting in his strength. He stopped acting in the purpose that he was called and stopped moving in the gifts that were in his life and remained in that little room where he could have knocked down that door like it was no problem. The other interesting character here was when she put doubt into the mind of Patricia.
Good for you.
Patricia, who fully believed in the beast, bringing up the evidence of him bending the bars in the zoo, being shot by the shotgun, and Dr. Ellie Staples saying, I went down there, and those were incredibly old bars. But you know, with a little wrench and a lot of work, I was able to bend them myself. Somebody who's really strong on a massive adrenaline kick, they could probably bend those bars. And the shotgun, it was a really old gun, stored in a wet area, with most of the spray of the bucks being caught up in the bars and stuff, so not even hitting you with the full force. And suddenly, that little seed of doubt began to blossom in Patricia. And as it began to get in her head, she began to freak out. Is everything I believed false? Is everything I believe not true? What's the most interesting is, she couldn't convince Elijah of one darn thing. Elijah is the villain, yet his faith was unshakable. His faith was unshakable that he had found his identity, that he had found his purpose, and that he had found his place in this life. So no matter what story she fed him about his intelligence and how that works and how this could have not worked here or that, whatever, didn't even faze him, and it didn't even bother him because he was so grounded in what he believed. He was fully persuaded of who he was. So when the voice of doubt came, he paid it no attention. It meant nothing to him. He changed the channel and he changed it to what he knew. So now we get to the premise of this movie. And the main premise that I took from this movie is this. We could all be superheroes, right? What would happen if we had no reason to doubt ourselves? We may not have super strength, telepathy, or superpowers, but what potential could we rise to in our own lives if we quit doubting ourselves? Which then goes to the comic book point of this movie, that others who probably are like David Dunn and have special gifts, when they quit doubting their special gifts and doubting themselves, then they could really rise up in the gifts that they have. And I contend that we are all superheroes. In John chapter 14, Jesus says something very, very curious. He says, most assuredly, I say to you, he who believes in me, the works that I do, he will do also. And greater works than these he will do, because I go to my Father. It's such a curious thing, because let's look at what Jesus did. It was very superhero-like. He healed the sick, he raised the dead, he multiplied food, he walked on water. Those are the things that he did, just some of the things that he did. And he said, you will do the things that I did. Then he went a step further and said, and greater things you will do. So in our relationship with Jesus, that's what we're meant to walk in. So we have gifts, we have power available to us in that relationship with him. So why do we not see it manifest in life? I contend it's because we all doubt it. And I'm not just saying you will doubt it. I doubt it. I definitely doubt it. I definitely believe it with all of my heart. And then there's moments where it comes to act and suddenly I can feel myself seize up and get a little scared. And I am passionate about the fact that I want to get over that. Because I want to walk in what Jesus wants me to walk in and quit doubting myself and quit doubting who he made me to be and quit doubting the gifts that he's given me. Because if I was too stupid to doubt myself, my gosh, what power could I walk in my life in that relationship with him? Then we just need to stop doubting that fact and walk in what he said we could walk in, and perhaps we can walk like superheroes, or at the very least just raise up to the full potential that we're designed to reach. David could have knocked down that metal door, man, but he couldn't do it. He couldn't, because he wouldn't give his full strength to it because he's afraid of hurting himself, because that's what doubt did. It held him back. But then when he realized he was denting the metal door and his arm still wasn't broken or shattered, faith began to be restored, and he began to put more and more of himself into knocking that door down until finally it came down like a piece of cardboard. So when he had doubt, he held back. When he let go of that doubt, he knocked down a freaking metal door because he was no longer afraid that it was going to shatter him. He just knew he could shatter it. So when you watched the movie Glass, what did you get out of this movie? Let's talk about that in the comments. And while you're there, hit the subscribe button to become a Durbanian, and hit the bell by the subscribe button so you're notified from my next theological analysis, movie review, ranking video, or anything else I do here. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.